Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here this afternoon. I want to just invite you to start making your way into a seat so we can get everyone here, and then we'll get started in about 4 or 5 minutes. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil, and I was Andy and Jill's pastor when they were at Ball State University quite a few years ago. And today what we're going to do is we are going to remember, and we are going to look around at each other. These are Andy's people, and the people connected to Andy's people. And this is a place that has a lot of meaning for Andy as well. And over there on those tables are all the foods that meant a lot to Andy too. And but you get to eat those. There's cheesecake over there, which was his favorite dessert. And there's Skittles, which was his favorite candy. Jack's Donuts. Andy's kids and his parents and his sisters have a lot of memories of eating these donuts with Andy from his favorite donut shop. There's soda over there. The 3 varieties of soda that Andy liked the most. Sunkist, Diet Root Beer, and Mountain Dew. Not sure how that worked out, but that's what it is. There's breadsticks from Fazoli's. Don't eat all those until I get over there. And then there's coffee from Jackrabbit Coffee here in Anderson. So as the evening goes on, or the afternoon goes on, feel free to get a refill on food or drink. As things continue, feel free to get up, sit down while things are happening, and we're going to do quite a few different things today to remember this man that so many of us knew and loved and appreciated. start things off, Andy's friend David has a video that he wants to tell us about and show us.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Like Neil said, my name is David Delagardelle. So many of you probably know, but for those of you who don't, Andy in many ways is my brother. He's been my lifelong friend, is, was, and forever will be since I was about 6. He and I think, met on a common interest and love called Legos. And you guys can see where that love of engineering, what that turned into in his legacy, in his work. So our incredible moms, Linda and my mom Jody, introduced us when we were kiddos, growing up in the homeschool community. And I immediately knew, okay, this kid's special. He's got all the skills that I don't have, but I want, and I want to learn from him. And so we caused a lot of mischief and created a lot of things. But, so recently, fast forwarding, of course, many years later, I think it was about 7 or 8 months ago, Jill kindly reached out to me and asked if I could create a video. She was expressing, and Andy was expressing too, being open in conversation with us about, like any of us would have, doubts about, man, have I done enough? Have I accomplished enough in my life? Have I made the impact I want to make? Like anybody in this room, I think clearly knows, otherwise he wouldn't be here. Of course, Andy had an impact. I mean, just look around us. That question, baffling to hear Andy say. But to hammer that truth in, Jill very kindly, sweetly, of course, wanted to show and prove, here's the legacy, here's the taste of the legacy that you've built, Andy, the things you've accomplished. And so me and Nate, we set out to secretly reach out to friends and family, colleagues, bladesmiths, craftsmen from around the world, really, and just get short blurbs, short comments from them about how Andy's impacted their life, regardless of how long they've known him. And it was great. So we compiled that footage. And the funny point of this story is, we're ramping up to this surprise event. And this was around the time we moved into this building. So it was just in the forge room there. And it was like a couple days before the event. I'm like, all right, I've made this video, really proud of it. I'm going to invite more friends. Draft a big group text to many people. And click send and realize, horrified, I just sent an invite to the man of the event, the man of the hour. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that moment when you sent a text and you're just like, no. And you go. But I had a panic moment, then chose to laugh it off, texted Jill and was like, Houston, we have a problem. I just ruined the surprise event. She kindly was like, you know what, it's not a big deal. He'll be forgotten easily in no time. And it really didn't matter because the day came and it was, to say it was successful and sweet and joy-filled and bittersweet would be an understatement. We all felt very proud because any of you know, all of you who know Andy know he was a strong and very stoic man, sometimes a few words, which is intimidating to many people. But I love that, and it was a hard cookie to crumble, hard nut to crack. I feel like that day, the video that we created, not just me, but all of us, was a success. He told us it was a success because he's like, wow, you guys got me to cry, look at me. So it was very sweet, very warm, and just a great memory that I'm so grateful that we did. So Jill, thank you for allowing me to do that for him. I'm so thankful we were able to share it with him and for everybody involved. The thing I just want to say about Andy is, and I think the best illustration to make this point is, I'm a father of an amazing 4-year-old son, my son Boaz, who I'm so grateful Boaz got to meet Andy on many occasions. And any parent in the room or, anybody who has any kids in their life will know, especially like a 4-year-old, that age, they're building their concepts of, who am I? How old am I? Am I cool? Am I not cool? Age is a big thing. Like, oh, I'm 3.5 or 4.5. And so Bo's in that age, and recently I've been trying to teach him the principles and the truths about maturity and wisdom. How I believe, personally as a father, and I think all of you would agree, the wisdom and maturity and kindness matters a heck of a lot more than the mere numbers you've been alive on planet Earth. And as I was trying to describe, the principles of wisdom and maturity to Bo, Andy was the first person to come to mind as the one human being on planet Earth, and I truly mean this wholeheartedly, who exemplified wisdom and maturity. And it's funny, I told Bo just the other day, I said, though Andy was and is a couple years younger than me, growing up our whole life as brothers of sorts. But there was many points in my friendship with him that he clearly was my older brother in terms of wisdom and maturity. In some of the hardest times of my life, at points that I needed a friend, a brother the most, he had wisdom that blew me away, and that without his wisdom, without his love, without his kindness and maturity, I wouldn't have done so well. And I'm sure all of you have experienced that, even whether directly, closely, or from afar. He truly showed me what it means to be a safe, strong, confident, stable man. I think he exuded and exemplified what healthy masculinity looks like. And I'm so grateful for that. And I want to remind, and I will continue to remind everybody till kingdom come, who Andy was and how he exemplified those truths about wisdom and maturity. How I'll forever love my, in some ways, younger brother, but in many other ways, my older brother. So enjoy the video, and thank you guys so much for being here.
Amen.
I'm Andy Davis, and I'm from Newcastle, Indiana. And I am 17 years old, and I'm a high school senior. One day we were walking back from the woods, and we had these little sticks that were using as swords to chop down corn, and then we were walking back, and I was this thought that, man, that would be awesome if we had real swords, and if we could make our own swords and forge our swords. And so we thought about it a while, and we decided that we were going to do it. We were going to make a sword. I started selling just to some kids at my church. They're big knife enthusiasts. It really wasn't selling a superior product to these kids. It was more just selling these twisted tang knives. Right now, it's at a stress state where all the molecules have been rearranged by forging it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to heat it up and let it cool, which will anneal it. And then I'm going to harden it by heating it up and dipping it in warm oil. And then it will harden the crystals back up, and it'll be a forged blade.
We were in each other's work. It's the
Yeah,
goal.
that happens
Pretty
too.
much,
We kind
so.
of we start working on each other's things, and then just start ruining things.
So I and a small army of amazing people want to tell you guys a story. We want to tell you a story about the young man who you just saw in those clips. That young man who then grew to be the father, the husband, the friend, the brother, the business partner, the son, the incredible man who we all know and love, Andrew Davis. Andy, we love you. But this video is not just for you, as you can imagine. We chose to put this video together for not only you, but for your kids, for your children's children, for generations to come, for those who love you dearly and those who have actually never met you, but who need to know the incredible legacy that you have left on not just the people in this video that you're about to hear from, but the entire world. And you might resist that, I'm sure, but the fact of the matter is, I know and I have seen the greater ripple effects that you have had, not just in the amazing work that you've accomplished and achieved in your life, as great as those things are, and I've had the privilege of working with you as a brother for years, but what's far more impactful and has greater ripple effects in the world is your character and your integrity and who you are at your core, which no time and no illness can ever take from you. And so we want to celebrate you in this video and share some stories, share some ways in which you've impacted us, even laugh a little bit, talk about some funny stories of how Andrew Davis came into our lives and the fun that we've had in the journey that we call life with you. And for those who are watching who don't know my personal story and how I know Andy, I'll share that later. But for now, Andy, receive these words from myself and countless others who love you and want to celebrate the life and the legacy that you have created.
Hey Andy, love you brother. Thinking about you all the time, pray for you all the time. You have always been a great inspiration to me. Your drive, your work ethic, your successes, You've given me goals to shoot for. You've always been a great brother, a great friend, a genuinely kind, good, generous human being. You're a strong Christian man, and I will always admire that. I love you, brother.
Hey Andy, figured I'd just remember a couple stories. First one, I guess I was kind of just first met you, probably about like 17. She came and visited your shop, was just like opening all the drawers and looking around, looking at all the stuff, being kind of annoying probably. I remember looking over and seeing your grinder, and there was like a contact wheel on there, like, oh, hollow grinding, huh? That's cool. I don't know how to do that. You were like, well, I could just show you. I was like, yeah, totally. I'd love to know how to hollow grind. And so you just showed me how to do that. I just remember thinking, hey, wait a minute. He does that for a living. He just totally showed me how to do that for free. That was awesome. I really like that guy. So that really stood out as just like a very nice moment. At one point I was making knives for money. Just really needed money, so I was posting them for sale on Facebook. You were offering to buy one. I was like, wait a minute. No, just make one of your own. You're way better than me. And you said, like, no, actually I want this one. So I went ahead and sold you that knife, which was awesome. And then I think later on you just like were posting like, hey guys, if you need knives, like Luke's making them. I got this one and I really like it. And yeah, just another moment just really stood out to me. It's like, yeah, I like that guy. That's cool. So anyway, love you, man.
Just wanted to let you know how grateful I am that you let me be a part of this team here at Coal Iron. When I first started here, I was super impressed by what you guys have created in such a short amount of time at such a young age. It's pretty amazing. I'm impressed by the machine you've created, not just the machine as in the press, but the machine as the teamwork, the creativity that you allow us all to have. Just overall, the awesome environment that you guys have helped create to make this whole thing work. Thanks, Andy.
Hey Andy, what's up, man? I just wanted to say I love you a lot, dude. I know that over the years we haven't had a ton of time to spend together, but that doesn't change the fact that you are like family to me, dude. Yeah, I just can't help but be proud of you and everything that you've done. Yeah, I love you a lot, dude.
Hey Andy, just wanted to give a message and say that I love you, human to human. I know we don't know each other, super well, the depths of each other's soul, but I've super enjoyed working with you. You've been this funny, stoic person to get to know, and I'm honored just to be part of your journey. On a really serious note, you've given me more hope and living than really any other faith or thing has. So as I journey on through life, I'm never gonna forget that, and I'm just gonna keep going, always. So for those of you also listening, some funny moments with Andy, they're gonna be vague because I'm not very good at like remembering specific moments, but Coal Iron Works was my very first manufacturing job. And so there are silly moments where like I would put something in a vise on a mill and forget to, tighten it down, so the piece would like sit on a drill and start spinning. And if Andy saw it, he would just kind of stare at me and tell me to stop the machine. I'm a hazard, so, but he's always so kind, and I've never heard him yell, I don't think, so. But it's been a blast to know him and work with him, and, if the kids are listening, then your dad was, like, truly an amazing person. Yeah.
So I think the first time that I met Andy was, I think in 2014. I went out to visit Dave and the other guys in Indiana, and we basically went to where the old Mad Dwarf workshop was, and basically finished kind of removing everything and tearing it apart. And it was like a weird kind of big, like full circle sort of moment for me, because when I first started bladesmithing, I spent a lot of time on the Bladesmiths forum and like researching stuff, and I kept coming across these amazing pieces made by this Mad Dwarf workshop, and I didn't know who they were or anything, but I kind of, started learning a little bit more about it, and eventually became friends with Dave and some of the other guys online, and when I finally went to visit and got a chance to meet Andy in person, we basically just like, you know, spent a bunch of time at his shop one day, and he taught me how to like hollow grind there, and showed me like a really beautiful little Viking spear, and just like, I don't know, I think he had like a lot of work that he should have been doing that day. I remember he was making like all of these like rings, these like big kind of metal rings for some big project. And I remember just like, I think me and Dave and Luke and Ryan just like showed up at the shop and like totally got in the way and basically stole the rest of his day working. And it was just such a really nice, happy sort of memory. Like I don't know, since then, you know, like at Blade Show, I've had a lot of fun going and like stopping by the Coal Iron booth and like seeing Andy. But yeah, I don't know, I have a lot of really fond memories of the first kind of time that we were able to meet and spend time together. And, you know, I mean, definitely as a formative kind of bladesmith, seeing all the stuff that was out there, like you choose your influences and your inspirations really quickly. And seeing the work, Andy, that you and Dave did together back when you were like teenagers, like is mind-blowing. It's like such inspiring and powerful work. And I don't know, if it wasn't for that, I know that a lot of people, myself included, wouldn't be anywhere near where we are in the craft, or interested in the same sort of stuff, or even know that it was possible to do. So yeah, those old pieces that I come across every once in a while when I'm Google searching for things, they hold a really special place in my heart because they're the beginning for me. So yeah, you know, I miss you, man. I love you a lot. You know, I hope you're doing all right.
Hey, Andy. Okay, so you're loved. I love you. I'm sorry that I scared the out of you as far as me putting my hand in a still spinning tap, and didn't mean to give you a heart attack. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's no secret you're going through things. Try to make this short and simple. Point is that your bravery has just been displayed for more people to witness than what you may realize, including myself. And I just appreciate you, and I love you and your family. And just keep your head up, and you'll always be looked after. And so will your loved ones. From all of us to you. I love you.
Hey, what's up, Andy? This is Josh at Josh Scott Knives. A recent post of yours on Instagram really had a pretty profound effect on me, and we conversed over DM just a little bit, and I just wanted to say thank you for your words and your perspective in this difficult time that you're going through with your family. We all love you, and we wish you the best, and cancer.
Andy's always been the type of guy that just drops everything for the people he cares about, or the people around him. One of the things that I really appreciated about him was that if I was around him, he could be working on a project or something. I'd bring up the fact of, hey, it'd be neat to do whatever, or it'd be neat to make this. And he would drop everything just to have that personal time with you and have that personal connection with you. And it was always really cool to be able to work with him and just know him, honestly, hanging out. He was always really funny, and it's always just, those are some of my favorite times, was being at the shop with him and David and just hanging out with the guys. And honestly, I always look forward to seeing him every time I see him. It's just that I know that he's busy all the time. So he's a busy guy. He has a lot of demand for him around there, and but it's always a joy whenever you get to see him.
Hey there, Andy. I just wanted you to know how much I've learned from you, and just the tremendous wealth of knowledge you bestowed upon me. Yeah, you taught me to grind my first knife properly. So anything I make from that point forward has a little piece of you in it. Not only that, but you've also taught me how to go through life with grace and dignity and strength, honesty. A couple instances of your brutal honesty that I thought were hilarious was a numerous amount of times I would try to tell you a joke in the shop and you'd just stare through me and not even acknowledge that I said a joke, and I would just have to walk away awkwardly. And yeah, most people I think would like fake laugh or something, but you would just You wouldn't laugh unless you thought it was funny, and I love that about you. Another instance of that was I had forged a hammer, and I was incredibly proud of it. I ground it and everything. I brought it up to you and asked if you'd be interested in buying one or if you liked it, and you just flat out said, no, it's ugly. And yeah, dude, I'll never forget that stuff. I obviously will never forget all the stuff you taught me about metalworking, and I'm forever grateful of knowing you. So yeah, you're the man, Andy.
Hey Andy, love you, brother. Man, you are such an incredible and inspiring dude, and you know, your strength is just really just unbelievable. You know, the generosity and kindness and encouragement and the inspiration that you give to people is just something that honestly everybody should really aspire to. And even from the first time I met you, it's kind of crazy that was 10 years ago now, in the old shop on your parents' farm. I was just some young dumb dude. You know, it didn't matter to you. You're just so thrilled to be able to share knowledge and encouragement and getting people excited about doing things that they're passionate about. And man, it's just unbelievable. And you know, I'm hoping I'll be able to get out there and see you again soon, man. But I'm sending love and sending prayers your way and to your family, and God bless, man.
Brother, Andrew, I love you. I say it often, and I know you're probably sick of it. Me telling you I love you so often, but it's true. In the past year plus that you've been wrestling with all that's going on in your life, you and I, as you know, have had some of the sweetest, most genuine, authentic, deep conversations that I've ever had with you. And while I'm pissed at the enemy and our broken flesh that tears us down and fights against us, I am thankful that in the midst of the darkness, you and I have had such sweet, genuine, deep moments as brothers, because as I've already shared with you, and you know what you said in those conversations, you helped me when I was at the absolute lowest point in my entire life. Like the moment, the day when I most desperately needed a brother to tell me the truth, to call me out on my BS, and also to lift me up and encourage me with hope. You were one of the only couple people, honestly, in my life that had the boldness to actually give me the freedom to be angry and to wrestle, to truly wrestle with the darkness. And so I want to thank you for that, because if you wouldn't have given me that permission, I would have given into the darkness. And I don't even know what that would have looked like, but I'm here, and that's because of you. And while I'm sure this whole video has been a lot to watch and take in, especially as a stoic introvert that you are, it struggles to receive a compliment, I also just want to thank you for being an example of what wrestling with those heavy things look like. Brother, I'm not blowing smoke and just saying a compliment when I truly say that you, more than any other man in my entire life, have shown me tangibly right in front of me what it looks like to be a man. Because it's easy for a guy to be a man when all is well, when everything's successful, when everything's happy and they're healthy and wealthy and all that jazz. You, being the man of integrity that you are, with your strength and your love and your commitment to your wife and your family and friends, and not giving into the darkness, not giving into despair. And I know you probably have your down days, but the fact that you would show up to the shop every day and be that leader, that stable rock, far more stable than any of us at the shop. We will all attest to that. I just want to thank you for truly displaying what it actually looks like to be a man, and a man of integrity. And there's so much more I could say, but as the resident dork in your life, I will end it on a note that won't wreck me. And in my full dorkishness, I will quote you some Tolkien, and I'll share my favorite quote that I'm sure you'll remember, and that is from Faramir when he says, "I do not love the sword, nor the arrow for its swiftness, I love only that which they defend. Paraphrased, but I say that to you because your primary loves in life are not the craft. It's not your amazing achievements, which, to remind you and make clear, brother, you've achieved more in 3 decades than most men achieve in 3 lifetimes. And that's a fact. But I say that quote because I think it perfectly describes you. You don't love the external achievements that you've done. You know that that is not what defines you. Bro, you have lived a fruitful and sweet, glorious life. A life that is beautiful, well spent, and filled with integrity and strength. And I love that quote because I know presses, crafts, and achievement are not your core love in life. I look at you and I see a man of integrity who still, despite the battles he's been through and despite the pain, I look at him and I see and believe that he still loves the Lord. And I see the overwhelming love and joy in his eyes and in his face when he looks at his wife and his kids. And I strive to be a man like you.
So I've been really racking my brain on what to talk about. You know, I've known Andy for a long time, a very long time at this point. But the less I racked my brain and the less I thought about it, the more the correct words came to mind. And that is that Andy has been just a catalyst for change and growth in my life. And I that word hangs heavy over his head when I think about him. He's a catalyst. He goes into a situation and he causes change. You know? He makes everything better. And he just does it so naturally. He came into my life and said, you know, do you want to start a business? And I had tried and failed on trying to do it by myself. But he came in alongside and just guided and supported and directed. And, you know, he always knew what to say to make me mad and to push me in the right direction. And that's just been a constant in our relationship over the last couple years. He's always known how to push my buttons just right and make the most dramatic, positive effect come out from that. And, you know, needless to say, the inventions and the wild stuff that he's helped us build and to help me design, and him and I putting our brains together, and just, you know, the brainstorming sessions got real on several occasions because we got to a point in our relationship where it was like we were married. We were comfortable with, you know, we both knew we weren't going to leave. So let's hash this out. Let's make this work. Let's figure it out. And so we did. And it, I wouldn't be half the man I am today without Andy coming alongside. And I can't say enough about his character. You know, him and his family are going through this incredible turmoil. And my wife got pregnant in the midst of all this, and instead of being, you know, stuck mentally in their own situation, Jill's cooking us dinner and bringing me food and coffee, and Andy's texting me positive texts, and, you know, just reminded me about the importance of family. And I love you, brother.
David, thanks for putting that together. And man, if I learned one thing in that video, Andy liked to surround himself with people with facial hair. I feel good being up here today. We want to take some time to share some other memories, maybe even some of you, and I want to invite Stephanie to come up.
Wow, there are a lot of people here. Thank you all for coming. My name is Stephanie Taylor. I'm one of Andy's older sisters, and on behalf of my family and for the Davis family, I want to thank each of you guys for attending today to celebrate the life of my brother, of Andy. My parents and my sister and I were all a little overwhelmed with the number of people that are here, and just the outpouring of support that we've had over the last several years and months as we've been with Andy on this journey. As I look around this room, today, I'm appreciative to each one of you that took the time to join us today to celebrate Andy and his family, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now, Andy was lucky enough to join two older sisters to round out the Davis family in 1990, and Sarah and I were really hoping for a little sister. But Andy was going to have to do, given that we didn't get consulted on this matter. He was lucky enough to have us, and that was okay. So we did, however, do our very best to torture him with years of painted nails, learning every word to the Dixie Chicks songs, hairstyling, fashion shows, tea parties, and every shade of mom's lipstick that we could get our hands on. He was always the perfect dress-up doll, and he was happy to go along with whatever our antics were as long as he could play with us. Sarah and I would often make Andy our servant, and we would see just how many tasks we could get Andy to complete before he wasn't having fun anymore. Mom and Dad weren't always amused by our antics, and that's okay. But looking back now, I hope that they know that we were having a good time because we were together. And those memories that we've made now are priceless. It's important that you guys know that Andy was the perfect child, according to my mother. I'm not sure what that really says about Sarah and I, but for the moment, I'm going to let him bask in his perfection for just a little bit longer. We'd always tease him about he would get away with anything because he could do no wrong in Mom's eyes. He embraced his title as the favorite, and he would take any opportunity he would get to remind Sarah and I that he was always the favorite child. Even last week when I stopped in to visit Andy, he had reminded me of the ranking order. Andy had demonstrated dedication from a very early age. Like when he would attend a wedding, he was completely dedicated to his terrible dance moves. He was dedicated to his Legos, his favorite jammies, macaroni and cheese, Jack's Donuts, baseball, and being the ultimate support staff for Sarah and I. Andy attended hundreds of our sporting events during his childhood, and he would often watch our practices with such intensity and then would give us unsolicited feedback on the way home of how we could improve in our sport. And he always pushed us to be better. He definitely didn't tolerate when we lost. When Sarah and I went away to college is when we really got to see Andy blossom as an individual. About that time is when Lord of the Rings became a thing. And I will admit, I still really don't take any interest in this movement. But to Andy and to David, this was life. They would spend hours reading the books, watching the movies, reenacting the storyline in the woods, and in Sarah and my eyes, they were just weird. What I found even more odd was the fact that they wanted to try to make some of the weapons that they had seen in the movie. And that's what I really didn't understand. Why were you ever going to need a sword in East Central Indiana? But David and Andy, they were obsessed. And they let their passion for the Lord of the Rings and their creative minds start the journey that you all just saw, known as the Mad Dwarf Workshop. One of my favorite memories about this part of Andy's journey into blacksmithing is the fact that he literally moved my dad's things out of his own barn and took it over in order to make a workshop for himself. Now, my dad's known for possessing an extreme amount of patience, and anyone that knows him understands what I'm talking about. But I thought for sure the fact that Andy and David had packed up boxes of Dad's stuff and moved it out was going to make his head spin. But Dad must have seen something that my younger self couldn't see, and he let them go and make their way in the world of metal. Now, Dad would take the boys to the scrapyard and let them buy whatever they wanted for $20. And that $20 would generate limitless creativity and you just never knew what they could make with their treasures from Joe's. The boys would spend hours upon hours in the shop making messes, pounding metal, designing things from discarded junk, and generating some wicked burn marks from the fire. They were in heaven in that barn. Mom would force the boys to come and take breaks and have a meal and wash their hands, and then it was right back at it. I would venture to bet that since they started working in that workshop, that neither set of fingernails has ever been clean since. They're permanently stained with the marks of hard work, creativity, and passion. And that's where it all began. And now as I look around at this building and the equipment, the presses, and the people here, I get Andy's passion now. So many times I find that we don't pursue our true passions in life because we're afraid that we won't be successful. But that sure didn't stop Andy, and he had no fear. He knew he'd be successful, and he was. A lot of you here, you know Andy in his professional role, and that was as one of the owners of Coal Iron. But the family side of Andy was also very beautiful. He was married to his middle school sweetheart, Jill, and together they created 3 beautiful children, Remy, Letty, and Grady. Andy was so proud of each of his children and loved them each in unique ways. My prayer for the children and for Jill is to always remember how proud and committed Andy was to you all. During his battle with cancer, Andy didn't ever back down. Every lab test, procedure, hurdle, hiccup, and consultation he faced head on and with grit. I remember visiting after his first surgery in the hospital, and he kept asking me, when can he go home? He wanted to have the list of things that he had to do and things that he needed to accomplish so he could stay focused and get the heck out of there and home to his family. If he knew his hospital stay was expected to be 3 to 4 days, he was going to be out in 2. He had a goal, and he worked hard to get home and back to his life as quickly as possible. Cancer wasn't going to get in his way, and not to our surprise, Andy discharged from the hospital after each admission more quickly than anticipated because he put in the extra effort to be back home and back to living his life. While Andy knew how his story would end, he didn't know when. And even with the diagnosis and the prognosis, Andy had peace. His faith in God assured him that he knew he would see Jesus. Perhaps it was going to come more quickly than he had planned, but he would often say that he had blessed assurance. He shared his faith openly and with others over the past week since he's passed. I have been so comforted by the number of people who have acknowledged that Andy had lived a life of faith. He lived his life and his faith in his daily life, and he taught his children about Christ. Andy would often sing the song, Jesus Loves Me, to his children before bed. Now, Sarah and I would tell him that his singing was going to give him nightmares, but he did it anyways, and I'm very glad for his children to have that memory of their father singing. I remember just last Christmas, I had the pleasure of telling Andy that I was expecting my first child. My family had gone to his house to visit on Christmas Eve after he'd just gotten out of the hospital with a stroke that left one side of his body affected. I know that after hearing of his stroke and his setbacks, I wasn't sure that he was going to be here to meet his niece, who was due to arrive in June. But Andy had other plans. When I told him the news, he burst into tears and hugged me close, and he said that it was the greatest honor in the world to be a parent, and he couldn't wait to meet Tiny Taylor. He was going to be there. And the day that I introduced Megan Drew Taylor, in June, to her Uncle Andy, was one of the best days of my life. I have now adopted singing Jesus Loves Me to my daughter each night, terribly, before bed. And as I lay her down every night, I pray that she knows that her name was chosen to honor an uncle who loved her dearly, and how I hope that she demonstrates his kindness, his strength, and his passion. Towards the end of Andy's journey, when he became confined to the hospital bed at his home, he was very much still the head of the household. We were never allowed to sit and talk for more than a few minutes before he'd be asking us to help do something around the house that needed to be done or check on the children. My personal favorite task was to chase the cat out of the sunroom because Andy and I shared a mutual hatred for cats. There was never any time for rest. There was always work to be done, and if Andy couldn't do it himself, then he was going to have us do it for him. I remember giggling at Andy's comments just a few weeks ago as Dad was working on a project in their kitchen, and Andy just knew that Dad was not going to do it right. But he said he would just wait, and he would fix it later because he didn't want to hurt Dad's feelings. Those final few weeks with Andy were filled with such love and joy and peace. While Andy wasn't always thinking clearly, you'd see a glimpse of his personality that would come through the sleepiness and the confusion. Now, sometimes things wouldn't make sense, such as asking, when are we going to the beach? Hearing a child crying when it was completely silent, seeing a squirrel in the house, a bug on his sheets, or when he would refer to Mom as sweetie. Andy was a jokester, and he had a sense of humor that I didn't always appreciate until these past few years. He was also so quiet and reserved, as many of you have commented, and that's mostly because with two sisters, he wasn't going to get a word in edgewise. But he actually was quite funny, but we would never tell him that. He was quick with the one-liners and the puns, and he loved to jab and to joke at Jill, and even towards the end of his days, he would call her Patricia. And he would be roasting her while she went about caring for him. When I stopped in to see him just about a week ago, he was in and out a little bit, but he opened his eyes and he said to me, "Well, don't you look fancy?" With a little bit of attitude, just like Andy would. The night that Andy had passed away will be one that I never forget. That day I'd been with him for several hours, and when I left, I had such peace about knowing that I didn't think I'd see him tomorrow. I was up in the night that night with a crying baby, and right before I got the call that Andy had passed. And as I was comforting my daughter, I was singing to her, "Turn your eyes upon Jesus." And little did I know that at that same time that I was doing this with my daughter, my brother was meeting Jesus. While Andy may be gone from this world, I know he's left an impact on my family, his in-laws, and all of those that knew him. We were honored to be a part of his life and a part of his fight. And our job now is to ensure that his children remember the remarkable man that he was, how abundantly he loved his family, his generous spirit, his strong work ethic, and his faith in Jesus Christ. And when they have moments in their lives where they miss their father and his presence the most, it is now our task to step up and to step in and to remind them that even though that their dad isn't here, that they are loved. It was never Andy's plan not to be there for those moments. But he had faith that God's plan was bigger, and he yielded his unknown future into his Maker's hands. Today we're celebrating an all too short of a life, but a life well lived. Andy, you're going to be missed more than you know. So save me a seat up there, and I'll see you soon. I love you.
Thank you. We were going to do some time for open sharing, but there's too many of you. I just don't think we can do that. So on these little pieces of paper that you might have seen up front, which you can sign the guest book at any time, whether you're coming or going, please do that. But you can also write notes that will be given to the family. So please do that. I shared a little bit of time with Andy a couple of months ago, and he asked me to take him to Muncie to visit the church that I used to be a pastor of on Ball State's campus when I met Jill and Andy. And there was 100 apologies for how slow and incapable he felt at the time. And we shuffled around the sidewalks of the Student Center at Ball State as we talked and remembered people, and as he stabilized himself with his cane. And I was so focused on making sure that he didn't fall, but I was trying to act like I was listening to what we were talking about. Are you sure you're not going to be too tired? Nope, because when I get there, I'll just sit down. That's what he said. And there was a lightness to him and a carefree resignation to life. And a sense that this is just who I am. And in that moment, he was perfectly okay with it. Well, this part of Andy was a lot different from the Andy I knew when we used to sit down for coffee and talk, and when we did premarital counseling, and then when I participated in their wedding, or when I visited him at the shop, or when we'd correspond over the phone or text or whatever. That Andy was strong, as many of you have mentioned, and quiet and independent and confident and not quick to show any kind of sign of weakness. And now, with shuffled steps on the sidewalk in the sunshine, laughing about pooping his pants and spilling food on himself and falling off the side of the chair. When we were texting about this little trip we were going to do to Ball State, he said, I'm a bit of a hazard to take out of the house. And it's funny because it's so foreign to people who knew me before. And if I don't laugh, then it's kind of depressing. Don't ever be afraid of laughing with me or at me, he said. And we actually laughed together when he thought the recently shined granite tiles on the second floor of the student center, he thought they were covered with water, so he kept trying to move away, and I kept trying to pull him straight and slipping in, because he was afraid he was going to slip and fall in the water. And he assured me that we were supposed to laugh about that. Over the last couple of years, Andy and I texted a lot more, and those texts increased as time went on. And I think part of it was because of COVID and the fact that we put our services and messages up online, and we connected after he would watch a message about something about God or the past or people and life now. And he said such kind things to me. Like the kind of things I'm not sure he would have been able to say 10 years ago. But when we sat in the car, both on the way to Muncie and then back home to Anderson, I saw something that many of you probably saw too in these last days. A man who was at peace. A man who was at peace with his coming death, at peace with God, at peace with his family. I remember turning the van onto White River Boulevard, and I asked him the question. I said, do you think there's anything that you feel has been left unsaid or undone? And he just said no. He said, I've had plenty of time to say and do all of the things that I needed to do. Most of us will not be able to say the same thing when our end comes. One of the last messages I got for him was a request to do some kind of talk on the story of Job. And Job, if you don't know, is a character from the Bible who faced some immense suffering. And he said he was familiar with the part about Job and the suffering. What he wanted to know was, what did Job experience when the suffering was over? Like, what was his life like? He asked. What about the second half? I feel such a connection to Job, but what about after the 41 chapters of suffering and pain and questions? I never told Andy that I didn't think that would make a very good talk. Partly because there's just like a half a chapter of everything else. Actually, Jim Sandberg, he could probably make an amazing talk out of that, but not me. There's probably not a lot in there that we're going to base our lives around. But the question of how do we move on from suffering into life, I have to imagine for most of us, family and friends, we're asking that question right now. I know some of you and I've seen you suffer as you've walked with Andy. And Andy made it seem like he didn't know what the answer to the next part of Job's life was, but I think we all know a little bit different. Andy was actually ready for what was next. Life after suffering. Here's one line from the end of the book of Job. This is like the only thing I could come up with. It said, "The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part." Andy told me in the van that day, some of my friends and some of the people I've met along the way are upset with me because they think that me giving up on my treatments and giving up on medical procedures, that I shouldn't do that. But if you asked him, or if you read some of his Facebook posts, he was ready to enjoy the last few moments with family and friends, and then to pass into the journey of what comes next after suffering. He knew that he would be with God because he sensed that he had been all along in his growing up years with his family and meeting Jill and dating and getting married and having kids and moving and creating work and running a business and swinging a hammer. And also when he was diagnosed with cancer and as he went through treatments and his body failed and as he sat with family members and went to doctor's appointments and as he struggled and wrestled with thoughts and pain and faith. But that person that I talked with in the van driving back to Anderson, I have not met many people like that. For real. Because he knew that he was on a journey. And he also knew that he knew something that the rest of us don't know. How to live when you know you're going to die. He was going to something next, maybe what Tolkien would have been referring to when he named this place the Undying Lands. That the latter part of his life would be more blessed than the former part. And when his physical body came to rest, and the hand of Jesus reached out and grabbed his, I imagine they got to work striking hot metal on an anvil. Many of you have mentioned, we know his love for the Lord of the Rings. And this is a passage from that book that has brought me a lot of comfort over the years. And it's a thing that Sam said to Frodo. And if you have not read it or seen the movies, you've had plenty of time to do this. So this is not a spoiler. But Sam said this. He said, "I know it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. This darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. If you have a glass or a water bottle or a fist, let's just raise them right now. One last time to Andy, a friend and a companion and a father and a brother and a son and a co-worker and a business partner and a mentor. Let's raise our glass to how he loved us and showed us how to journey into the darkness with courage and probably with fear, but also with faith and probably with pain. And show us how to go to the undying lands. We will miss you. We are going to watch a video that Jill and Andy made as a way to remember Andy and to articulate his legacy.
What's your favorite donut place?
Wait, I need that again. Say that one more time.
What's your favorite donut place?
My favorite donut place. Well, I grew up where I was a skinny, scrawny little kid. And my mom, Nana, took me to Jack's Donuts in Newcastle every single morning. Every morning. And she would get me a tiger tail and a carton of, it used to have cartons, not bottles, a paper carton of chocolate milk. I used to eat that every single morning for about 5 years.
But why did she want you to eat donuts and chocolate milk in the morning?
To fatten me up. She thought that it would make me grow bigger. It didn't. That's not how it works. The three words ingenuitive, kind, and peaceful. I think just, from even 10 years old, I was tearing apart printers and computers and things like that and rebuilding them, not necessarily to function, but just to see what I could put together. Always experimenting to figure out if I could rethink some way to do something that's already been done before. And maybe do it in a slightly different or easier or just different way of doing it. I've always been curious with mechanisms, electricity, and all sorts of stuff. So combining all of those, whether it's mechanical motion or electronics or anything like that, combining different subject matters to create something of not necessarily of value, but something new mechanically, or a new idea or something. I've never been satisfied with doing things the way they've always been done. I've always loved rethinking a problem, even if there is something out there that I could go buy. I would rather kind of make it in the shop so that I understood what it is that I needed, and maybe there was another solution to the problem. I think for me, I struggled feeling guilty about indecision a lot, And so one of the things that I would say is it's okay to be undecided about things in life. You know, whether it was college or, you know, what I wanted to do as a job, or if it was what I wanted to do is with friendships, or even with dating my wife, or someday to be wife. You know, there was so much indecision and uncertainty with that, and I had lots of opinions from outside. But it's actually okay to be undecided about things. You don't have to have your entire life planned out. The moment that the crossroads comes up, you have time to stop and think, or even just take a couple steps in one direction, and if it doesn't work out, or you don't like the way things are looking, back up and take the other road. You know, I think that was a big part of maybe what held me back a little bit in life, was being so afraid of screwing something up. But you know, in our life, we have spent so much time standing at the point of decision that too afraid to take a step in either direction, that we've wasted time. And that would be my only regret, was that we had spent so much time, I'm speaking for myself mainly, but you know, even in a relationship and a marriage with Jill, we've spent so much time in that crossroads that we could have been walking down those one path and known the answer, had we just struck out in a direction rather than just sit there and wait. But one of the coolest things about being married, I mean, just to know that there's always this one person that is always going to be there for you. Just that no matter what, there's always that one person that's gunning for you, that is there to always root for you, always be on your side.
Probably along the same lines, I heard somebody, I think it was during one of our premarital counseling sessions, saying one of the best things about being married is somebody witnessing your life. And I never understood what that meant. I personally sometimes feel very unseen, and it's like my own complex. It's not that people are actually ignoring me. But being married has realized, like, even the small things, like, you want someone there to see you and to witness even the small things, like the small joys, the small sorrows. And you don't think they're so important until maybe you realize that might not be there at some point. And it makes you really appreciate that. Somebody being there just to see your life and what that means and how it turns out. So that's been, I mean, it's been hard, but it's been special that I have that perspective that I didn't have 2 years ago. Do you want to go to me?
Sure. I mean, it's what's it like to watch Jill become a mother? It's
Tumultuous.
it appears there was a struggle. That's what the police report would say. No. No. It's very revealing, because you see the best and the worst of people when they become parents. I think when there's all of a sudden an added responsibility to your life of it's not just you anymore. You have the responsibility of these souls that you have to train from day one, you know, from the moment that they are born, and it's a huge responsibility. And some people are just like there, ready for it. I don't think that Jill or I were ready for the responsibility, but you don't get the option when you're a parent. You have to. You become what you need to become in order to make sure that these children have a life that they deserve. And so watching Jill develop into a mother was not easy. It was difficult. She does not have many motherly characteristics, but through that, sometimes, well, all times, if you're not built for something but you still get up and you try hard every single day, that shows 10 times more about the character and the mother that you are than than if you were just made to be a mother and you just constantly fit that bill. But the fact that she tries and works so hard to be a fantastic mother just means the world to me. And I know that our kids are getting what they need. When Remy was born, it was hard. It was very difficult. I wasn't necessarily prepared to be a father, but it happens nonetheless. And all of our children have been difficult children to raise as far as their early years in life. None of them have been good sleepers. They've all had their challenges. I've had many an emotional battle with Remy, especially when like 3-4 years old. He just put up so much resistance to authority, and I had to just really temper my own anger towards that, because I was incredibly sensitive as a young kid to authority of my father, and showed an immense amount of respect, and he did not have the same set of principles that I had when I was his age, and that scared me a lot, because I didn't want to somehow encourage the wrong mindset in him. Like, maybe, I'm not saying my childhood is perfect, but if I wanted to give him that sense of respect for his father and other men, how would I do that? And I think I did it poorly for the first couple of years when we were raising him, especially in our farmhouse, and so I have quite a few regrets about showing anger towards him when I shouldn't have, and been much more patient. But I think as he's developed and matured, I see that sense of respect and the maturity come in time. It just wasn't there in the beginning, but I didn't have it either as a father. I didn't have the maturity as a father to foster that in him at a young age. So we both helped each other get there eventually.
One day at work, I was posed the question of, well, are you religious? And I didn't have a very confident answer for that person. Religious, I don't know that it really, I don't know that that word describes my belief. Religious, I think of religion, which I'm not too necessarily caught up on, but okay, yes, I do have a relationship I do believe in God, Jesus, and I do have a relationship with that, and because I had such a hard time answering that question of am I religious, it really started a spiral of, am I saved? Am I going to heaven? I had so many regrets all of a sudden flooding in of, well, you haven't been to church for 6 months. You haven't, encouraged your family along that path. You haven't done all of this and all of that. And I was, quickly spiraling down as I was walking out of work. But then God kind of opened my heart and ears and just said, blessed assurance and believe. And he said, think about those for a while, because those are your answers to prevent you from questioning the past, several years of your life and questioning whether you're going to heaven or not. And so as I was thinking about those things, and blessed assurance, I know the song, but what does it mean? And so it kind of made me think through, okay, blessed assurance, it's the assurance that you are saved, but why? And so believe, that was the other word that he chose for me to dwell on. And believe, I kind of went back to the roots of where I learned about Jesus and all that, and in Bible school, Backyard Bible Club. Everybody learns John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whoever should believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And that answered that first question of, well, what is blessed assurance? Well, blessed assurance is simply those who believe are blessed with the assurance that they will go to heaven. And it all just I had overcomplicated my entire religious experience and my religion, and it all of a sudden just made sense. Belief is your guaranteed acceptance into heaven. And I came away with such peace after realizing that I had been overcomplicating everything for so long, but yet still believing. And that belief, that simple belief, is your guaranteed assurance. It is your ticket to heaven or whatever. That's your belief, not your works, not how well you performed your religion, is why you are saved. And it was just a turning point for me where I had just overcomplicated and beaten myself up so much about the formalities of it all that I had forgotten the most basics. And so going back to Bible school and just saying, no, these are what we were called to do, believe, and I do. I 100% have never believed more in my life, more honestly, more purely had the belief that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior of my life. And that alone is enough. That is enough. That is all that he has called us to do. I don't have to regret the past. I don't have to beat myself up or hang my head in shame. All I have to do is believe. I think having to go through what I've gone through, I have found that it sounds really silly when I say it out loud, but this genuinely how I feel is that we have to love people. If we cannot love people first, there's no changing their minds, there's no making an impact in their life. You have to love a person and love who they are and everything about them in order to just accept them and be to make an impact in their life. You first have to love them. And I think that was something that I kind of struggled with a little bit in the past probably 2 years, was loving people despite their faults. I wanted to somehow blame the bad decisions that they made on maybe them as a person or something, but I found myself just coming back to the fact that you have to love somebody first. You have to love them for who they are and accept them before you can try and change their life, impact their life, anything like that. And so I've found just an immense call in my heart to love people, however that looks. Just saying a kind word or just acknowledging who they are as a person and not trying to put my own opinion of them and create some backstory or reason why they have to be the way they are, but just to love them exactly who they are, and just accept them for that, has just been a kind of eye-opening in the past year for me.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mommy and Bill. Happy birthday to you.
My name's Nathan Brandt. I was Andy's business partner, and we were going to have the option of a couple people coming up and helping with this, but I think for now I'll just take the honor all for myself. But this is Andy's favorite hammer. And his ankle. That, as I understand it, he took from his dad. And I'm going to ring it 31 times, just in honor of him. At the end of that, we'll just hold tight, just enjoy the silence. I don't know that there'll be a formal dismissal or, yeah, okay. So I'll get started with that. And it's going to take a minute, 31 times, and then just some silence at the end. All right? I hope I count right. No pressure.
There was one thing that Andy wanted today, and it's what we're going to finish with. Andy and Jill know that there are a lot of friends, family members, people, both who share similar faith experiences with them and some who don't as well. And but Andy wanted this for us to sing this. And this isn't a thing that you have to do or believe, but just a thing to receive. And it's probably a pretty familiar song. It's the song that Andy sang so many times to his kids, and he wanted us to sing it together. And after we do, I'll say a short prayer, and then we have to eat all this food.
Those of you that are able to maintain some emotional restraint, please use your voices. If it feels silly to sing Jesus Loves Me in a group, in a big warehouse with a lot of adults, just remember that there are kids all around you. All of you guys are, probably everyone in this room has been a parent or has had a niece or a nephew or has been a babysitter or has been an older cousin. I'm singing this for my niece and nephews, so sing with me.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
Jesus, we are the ones who need the comfort today. All of the years and years of praying for Andy are finished. And now, Lord, we pray to you for ourselves, for Andy's family, for close friends and co-workers. Lord Jesus, comfort us in our grief. Help us to remember words and ideas and things that we heard here this afternoon. Remind us how special and precious life is, and show us in the way that Andy did the courage that we can have to face the end of our lives as well, knowing as he did that you are with us. Give us grace to walk forward into new days, days that will be different, days that will be hard. Comfort us in our grief and loss as we wrestle with Andy's passing. Give us your peace, Lord. Give us your presence. We pray this in Jesus' name. Thank you for being here. Please stay, don't leave. Talk, look at each other, and eat all this food too. Thanks for being here today.